All right. I'm with Ian Graham, president of Oroco Resource Corp. The symbol is OCO on the TSX venture. And I've invited, the company Oroco on Goldfinger Capital this afternoon because I think it's an interesting setup. It's an interesting story. And for a number of reasons. Copper company finally did a sizable financing, so they have a good amount of capital, runway in 2026. They have a catalyst, rich year ahead, and even the market has given us a little bit of a pullback in the share price here. So it's great to speak to you today. Hey Ian, how are you doing?
I'm really good, thanks, Robert. And yeah, good to chat to you here online after we spoke, I guess, last year a couple of times at VRIC, etc. So, and I guess the myth, and yeah, really good to be able to join you and your audience on your platform.
Thank you very much. So tell us about the Santo Tomas Porphyry Copper Project and why this asset is so important.
So the Santo Tomas Porphyry is a large copper deposit located in northwest Mexico. It outcrops at surface, and we've put together a PEA on the project. It's been known a long time, first discovered in the last century, and some significant work done in the 1990s that put together a bit of a resource. We've come in now and started work in 2021, 2022, drilled off an enlarged resource, and we laid a PEA over that gave us two conjoined pits, open pits, that would make between them 5 billion pounds of copper over 22 and a half years. And the PEA showed us about a $1.1 billion US capex spend for a post-tax NPV 8 of 1.5 billion US. So a very nice capex to returns ratio, and a mine that would make 100,000 tons a year of copper and about 108,000 ton a year of copper equivalent in aggregate over that PEA mine plan. So very good economics, significant mine, good mine life in a location where we had natural valleys to put tails and mined waste, and very low strip ratios, particularly to begin, because the ore body outcrops on the side of a hill at the so-called North Zone, and similarly at South Zone. South Zone, later in life, there is a little more strips. So the image you see on the screen is the north pit. We're looking kind of north to south over the mine plan. And on your right, sort of under the lettering, is the waste stockpile. And on your left, in a valley in the distance, are the tailings and a crusher facility just beyond the north pit. So fairly straightforward mine set out, a property that really accommodates the management of tails and waste, and low strip start. So that's really what helps drive the economics. And the occurrence is at low elevation. The base of the pit you see is a little above sea level, and it's a short distance to a very effective deep water port at Topolobampo. So we don't have the great elevation differences of some of the other copper projects. We're on a major trade route, the La Entrada El Pacifico, that connects the Permian Basin and Texas, Lower Mississippi trade region with the Pacific via this trade route that is recognized legislatively both in the US and Mexico. So just a fortuitous location, accessible project with an outcropping low strip porphyry copper. So, just very, very interesting opportunity. And we're really excited with the PEA, and now we've gone ahead and raised money to barrel forward with the pre-feasibility study, which we're busy preparing the site for drill mobilization as we speak.
So to be clear, this is a porphyry copper deposit, and actually there's two deposits, or there's two open pits. And the way it's, envisioned to play out is you'll start with one open pit, sort of a starter pit that's slightly higher grade, and then around year 7 or 8, you'll go ahead and start mining a second pit. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the ore bodies are connected, but it's sort of it's almost like a figure eight, the way the porphyry is expressed in the subsurface. So yes, we'll start with North Pit and migrate to South Pit as mining progresses. And yes, we get to start in some of the higher grades at the ore body. They happen to outcrop at North Zone, and so that really helps the ramp up, the payback, and the economics for this project. So really, really, really exciting ore body, and I think a fairly straightforward mine plan will exploit it with the profitability indications that we're already seeing from the PEA.
When I first saw the numbers in the PEA and what your market cap was in 2024 and 2025, there was such a big disconnect that it was stunning, quite frankly. I mean, when you talk about 1.5 billion in the after tax, of the NPV8, and the market cap was, I don't know, 60 or 70 million at that time when I first took a look at the company. It's stunning, right? So clearly the market was seeing a company that could not advance this asset through permitting and build a mine. Now, the gap has narrowed a bit here in the last couple of months, but it's still quite substantial. Can you talk to us about what the market is not appreciating, about Oroco and your plans to advance the Santo Tomas Project?
Certainly. I think the market was well aware that there were, let's call them political challenges in Mexico around development of open pits in the latter part of 2024 and into 2025, when we saw a regime change in Mexico, albeit with the previously governing party continuing in office. So we had some work to do in terms of connecting with the political interests in northern Sinaloa and federally, who very much wanted to see this project continue through development, and they still do. And so we spent a big chunk of last year engaged with federal and state officials, basically positioning the project for adoption into a program called Plan Mexico, which is the president of Mexico's nominated list of key high capex development projects that she and her Secretary of the Economy desire to see built in reasonable timeframes in Mexico. And so our engagement with the governments brought us in May of last year to the Plan Mexico list of development projects. So that was a significant step forward for us. The recognition that we would indeed be on that list, and I think that was transformational, Robert. And to be fair to the market, I think their concerns were real and merited in the first part of last year. However, we're now a nominated development project in Mexico. We've been joined by a new board member, and Faisal Rodriguez, who joined us mid last year, has a superb development record in Mexico with Torex Gold. And so I think between our inclusion on Plan Mexico through the Plan Sinaloa hub development project, and with the addition of a person who is hyperconnected in Mexico, has been permitting, building, expanding, operating mines to our board, now puts us in that position where we, I think, quite confidently can believe we're on a development, permitting and development track. So we need to put the PFS together. That requires some more drilling. We need to move South Zone from an inferred resource category into the indicated category. I think the trend, the changes that we saw politically and on the board have now set us up as a real development candidate. So I think there's been a transformation. I think the market was seeing a real challenge for us. I think we've managed to, reduce those challenges and sort of put them in their place and tee ourselves up to move forward. And so I think, the bought deal raise done right after New Year this year moved very quickly. Institutional participation, we were thrilled with the outcome. And I think so we're sort of teed up both politically and financially now to crack on with the PFS. And I have to tell you, quite honestly, that for me, that's a massive sort of personal relief. It is the same for Oroco. We now see that we're ready to move this project forward. It's an important project. It will make significant copper, and it's well located just south of the United States. I think geopolitically we're in the right spot, and it is it's just time to get back to the technical work and start environmental baselining and the prep for permitting, which we would look forward to progressing through 2027. So, we see the next 15 to 18 months very, very focused at the project level and delivering the PFS, which will tee us up for development and steps that we think will bring a transaction for the company and for the project in the latter part of next year. So, we're excited just to get going and go hard. But your question regarding the market, they did see something that I think was a real challenge. I believe we've overcome those.
Can you flip to the PEA slide for Santo Tomas, the highlights?
Sure.
So my first question is, and I can see the answer on the slide. So the base case copper price in the PEA was $4 per pound, and that gave you that $1.48 billion number on the MPV and the IRR of 22.2%. Was there a sensitivity to what that would be in a $5 copper price environment?
Yeah, we published sensitivity curves, although they went to 20%, so $4.80. But yeah, I mean, at $5 copper, we see a massive post-tax MPV lift when we assume all the same other inputs, and we end up above $2.5 billion in the $5 copper range, in particular if we adjust up the gold, silver, and molybdenum a little as well. So, this project is copper price sensitive for sure. And, pricing above $4 gives us really quite remarkable ratios between capex and NPV. Now, as we move into the PFS, I suspect the mine plan will change a little. We'll do more in the way of trade-offs. And in the course of last year, we worked with a company that does mine option trade-offs. They're called Whittle Consulting. And we've identified a few areas that we're going to focus on in the PFS to see what we can do to improve the economics of the project, whereby they would improve even at $4 copper. So we've identified some areas there, in particular for targeting South Zone, where we think the breakage conditions of the rocks will be more readily processed. So we'll see a little more material moved through the plant for less input energy. And these all have positive impacts on net present value. So we're quite excited about some of the other uplift opportunities that will come with the PFS. And then once you add in a new commodity pricing environment, I think the economics will become even more compelling. So, we're excited. The timing is right. We're pleased. We sort of feel we have the wind at our backs now with respect to the permittability of the project. And we see all the other sort of macro environment conditions lining up to make this project readily capitalized and one that will get built in the not too distant future. So Robert, I do think we're a different candidate in the market today from what we were when you first took a look at us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's already been a big change, and I would anticipate if you are able to strongly execute your plan over the next couple of years, this company will look a lot different 2 years from now. Regarding, the initial capex. So first of all, with PEAs, I always assume that number is low. I always assume by the time it's all said and done, that number is going to be 30 or 40% higher. So let's just say that the initial capex actually turns out to be 1.5 billion. But let's also assume that $5 copper is actually a reasonable and maybe a conservative price to use by the time this mine is actually in construction. So that 2.5, number becomes more, relevant. So still good metrics, good, ratio there between the NPV and the initial capex. But what concerns me is the company's market cap. And how can a $150 million market cap company put up or get financing for $1.5 billion in capex? So what do you say to that?
Well, that's a great question, Robert. And I suspect during the period that we were busy trying to sort out the politics, etc., our light was somewhat under a bushel. I think we just have to step forward now, tell the story openly and honestly. And that's what you and I are doing right now. Hopefully we can communicate the opportunity to the market in a transparent manner. And I think if we can do that, I think, we hope and trust that we'll see some level of re-rate for the company. We certainly were thrilled with the institutional response to the financing. That came after some solid due diligence by the various parties that participated in that. And I think, just the fact that we have transformed the permittability situation will get communicated to the market. But clearly, we need some help with that. And, a long period of perhaps under communication needs to be reversed in 2026. So, and we're certainly all ears as to how we might best do that.
So tell us about what the company's key objectives are now over the next couple of years. Obviously, you've talked about the PFS. That'll be a very important document. But what about the permitting side of things? When do you really get going on the permitting side of things?
In order to get going on permitting, we really need a feasibility study in hand and all the baseline environmental work done. So we're kicking off the baseline work beginning of April. That's a 12-month process, and we're obviously getting our heads down on the pre-feasibility study. And what we'll be looking to do is to move the permitting forward as quickly as we can on the heels of delivering the PFS and the baseline work. We're going to rely quite heavily on the experience and advice coming from Sauzal Rodriguez, our new director, with whom we've had, some pretty constructive engagement around how we do this and maintain the momentum into permitting. But that is the key, absolutely. And, the immediate focus the next quarter or two is to get moving on those studies, absolutely. But we clearly need to build momentum that just peaks in mid 2027.
The resource at Santo Tomas is already quite substantial. I mean, you're basically in the ballpark of 10 billion pounds copper equivalent. But is there any expansion potential? Is there any room for new exploration? Maybe you'll find another porphyry center on the property.
So there is. We try to project a fairly sort of modest view of how that will unfold. We'll definitely expand the resource a little at South Zone. We're careful to say that we don't see that as being something so significant as to be transformational. I think that's a more realistic projection, is that we'll improve the situation modestly in tons and hopefully a little in grade at South Zone. However, in terms of that blue sky, that thing that could be transformative, we acquired from our Santo Tomas partner the Vinea project, which is just south of the Santo Tomas Project. And I'll just sort of queue up a map for it here. And at Vinea, we see a high potential for another porphyry center, and we're seeing mineralization evidence there that suggests there's porphyry intrusives, and we know that there's a mineralized breccia currents there. So if we look at this Vinea slide, the panel in the middle is the regional situation of Vinea with respect to Santo Tomas in the orange. And then north of Santo Tomas, north and a little east, is the Baharachi porphyry copper deposit that is currently owned by Jinchuan. So there are multiple porphyries on the trend already, or two of them. We know that there are monzonite intrusions down in the Vinea area. They've been mapped by the government. We haven't seen quartz monzonite yet, but we've seen these replacement skarn deposits at a place called Mazamica that's labeled in the panel on the right. It's sort of central to the Vinea project. And then there is a fairly large breccia deposit which has had some underground drifting on it with copper, silver, and some zinc. So there is definitely volcanic activity, intrusive activity that's created the skarns, been the cause of this breccia occurrence, and maybe scalable. So we will be paying a little attention to Vinea this year. I, for one, am quite excited about it. Andrew Ware, our sort of project geo and QP down on site, he's excited about it. And so who knows, we might be able to thread a third pearl to this string of porphyries. So that's, I believe, where a transformative upside opportunity may emerge. But I want to be cautious. We are focused on Santo Tomas, the resource, the PFS, and moving that forward.
Very good. Yeah, that makes sense. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, as they say, right? Correct. So tell us about the location of the project there in Mexico. Look, there's obviously been some negative stories in the headlines here early in 2026 about cartel activity. I think that's something that's on the mind of any investor in the mining industry. So I have to ask about it. Absolutely. Where is the project located, and what is the situation there on the ground in Mexico?
So we're located on the border between Sinaloa and Chihuahua, so right on the border. So we're in far northern Sinaloa. The region has had some history of cartel presence back when, in particular, when cannabis was being grown in the region. And so that was occurring east of Santo Tomas, but was a somewhat staple crop in the region. That has all changed. Changes in legislation regarding cannabis in North America has seen that industry essentially collapse in the area around the project. And as a result, we have substantially less profile from the unofficial economy in the region, to the point that galvanizing the economy in other ways is the focus of both the state and federal governments. And so we're not part of the Mazatlan inland sort of routes and highways that are established down around Mazatlan. We are in a different area, different region, different risk profile. That said, we maintain a very close ear to the ground. Formally, for the company, we have in place security, and we have done that from the beginning. I would say that obviously the people of Sinaloa are really impacted by what happened down further south, and our hearts go out to all of those impacted by what occurred earlier this year, and it is felt in the far north as well. I think just for us, our situation on the trade route, which invites more federal oversight, and the fact that we're not in a cartel center helps us. We've been a good corporate citizen for a long time, and we have deep community ties and continuing engagement in Choix. But that doesn't minimize the tragedy that impacted the industry and the communities of Sinaloa. We felt that very keenly. I spent the last couple of weeks down in Choix, and this was a sad time for a great many of us. So our hearts go out to the folks affected down in the Mazatlan and east of Mazatlan areas. That was very challenging.
Yeah, it was a very unfortunate event, tragic, and I think it was felt by many, both in Mexico and outside. But very good location, in my opinion. You're close to a lot of infrastructure, gas pipelines, roads, and you're not far from water. So what I start thinking about is, once this actually is built and turns on as an operating mine, it'll be pretty easy to ship out a concentrate or what have you from the mine. So what are the thoughts about where this ore will eventually find its way to?
So in the PEA, we contemplate shipping from Topolobampo with some pretty basic inputs for delivery in the Far East. I do believe, though, that the geopolitical situation is changing, Robert, and so without betraying any likely outcomes, we'll have a lot more focus on what might become of our products, perhaps being processed nearer to home. But that work has not started. I must be very clear on that. But we are in a changing world, and I think our location, near shored to US, to located in North America, it will behoove us to contemplate other options, and we will do that. But at this point, and the PEA was based on shipping concentrate abroad.
Very good. Yeah. You would think that we might actually turn back on that smelter in Arizona, the Hayden smelter, which is not too far away from where Santo Tomas is located, and then build some more, which is definitely something that the administration in the U.S. is openly talking about, and in fact promising. Final question, you closed a $23 million financing just recently. What will the proceeds of that financing be, used for, and lay out the roadmap for shareholders in 2026?
Sure. So the financing raised will complete the drilling and do the bulk of site work for PFS requirements. So we're financed for 2026. However, to get through 2027, we will need additional capital, and it's our intention, not to let the grass grow under our feet ahead of us taking care of that follow-on raise. So, we will be back in the market to raise the balance of requirements that will take us through next year. To be decided when exactly that will occur, and we're currently busy putting together some of the final bids and budget-related items. Those will take another month or so to put together. But once we have a dial in a sort of final financing requirement for this year and next, we'll come back to the market, I anticipate. So, that's where we stand. This year will be a busy year, getting the data collected, getting the drilling, getting the baselining going, we're going to do, more detailed tailing studies, etc. And the focus has to be in just getting that work completed this year. But we've mobilized the crew at site. That's coming together very quickly. We're reestablishing road infrastructure at site, etc. And it's pretty exciting, to be honest. It's sort of get up and go time. So we're loving that. We'd love to let as many people who are beginning to follow the copper story, we're in transformation globally as to sort of the commodity. The world of commodities is fundamentally changing, and it's an exciting time, and we want to be part of that growth story. And we're going to work hard to make sure that this project does play a near-term role in the supply chain story.
Very good. One final question I thought of. Have you given guidance for the PFS and when that will be published?
Softly, we're targeting late Q2 next year, and we believe that's achievable based on what we currently know.
Okay. And have you hired a firm to do the PFS?
We have a series of firms retained for parts of the PFS. We haven't retained the overall project managing firm as yet. And Robert, that might be a couple or 3 months out at this point, when we're not sort of chasing that specifically right now. But we do have SRK retained. They're helping us with drill set-outs, resource planning, geotechnical and geohydrological work. They're going to take care of those programs. And 2 of those 3 are contracted as we speak. And we'll sort of do the next series of studies shortly. So once the drilling starts and we're back in routine, data collection will focus very much on sort of putting together the overarching infrastructure for the PFS. And we are going to integrate the Whittle Consulting Group a little into some of that because of the very significant value they helped us identify in the second half of last year with their trade-off work. So even though we were quiet, share price was low, etc., we did some of the necessary trade-off and sort of options analyses towards where we might find greater value out of a PFS, what to focus on. And so we'll keep the Whittle Consulting Group engaged as we move through PFS.
Very good. So I like the Oroco setup, both on a fundamental level and a chart technical level. Those who watched my presentation at MIF in September 2025 will know what a haunted house is. I would say this company falls into a former haunted house category just because of everything that we talked about in this conversation about open pit mining in Mexico and how the company kind of went dormant for a couple of years. And now the chart burst to life at the end of 2025 and early here in 2026. So I think it's definitely one that's on my radar now. And I invite all the viewers to put it on your radar as well. And in this conversation with Ian, he's laid out some very clear milestones and news flow that we can expect from the company in 2026 and well into 2020. And he also was very transparent. They will need to do a financing at some point later in the year so they don't run the cupboard dry, right? But it's a very interesting story, especially when all the economics in the PA are based upon a $4 copper price. So that's one of multiple opportunities here for value to be generated for shareholders. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Robert.